All right, I think that should be everybody who's attending. So, look, good afternoon, all, and thank you for joining me today to listen to a relatively brief overview of the Coral Expeditions Cape York and Arnhem Land cruise series that includes the Torres Strait and the beauty of the Northern Great Barrier Reef and their associated islands. My name is Will. I'm a member of the Coral Expeditions sales team, and joining me today, hopefully, as we're having a few minor tech issues, but hopefully joining me today, we're lucky to have Ian Morris to provide his potentially unrivaled insights into the region. And he's going to be providing his unique commentary on some of the main highlights across this expedition cruise series. And it's the perfect embodiment of a Coral Expedition guest lecturer and chosen for his specific expertise in Arnhem Land and the wider northern or top end of Australia region. And hopefully I'll introduce you to him shortly. If you've got any questions throughout the presentation, then please feel free to pop these into the chat function on your computer. And between Ian and myself, we'll attempt to answer as many of these as we can, time permitting, at the end of the presentation. If we don't get to all questions, we'll come back to you all directly after the presentation. So Coral Expeditions is Australia's pioneering expedition cruise operator, sailing for 40 years now. Our fleet of three really specialised expedition ships and tenders take guests to some of the most beautiful yet undiscovered islands and coastal regions of the world. Our travellers are attracted by our relaxed, small ship atmosphere and itineraries that larger ships just cannot replicate. And at a time when the cruise industry is moving to larger and larger and less personal ships, we've deliberately limited the size of our vessels to maximize that true expedition experience. So for those of you who have cruised with Coral Expeditions previously, be that in the Kimberley or beyond in domestic and international waters, you're going to be already be more than aware of the style of expedition product we offer, both on board, but also whilst exploring the stunning kind of remote destinations that we visited. As mentioned, Coral have been in business now for 40 years, and for those 40 years, we've been taking groups of like-minded explorers to really remote destinations with expert guidance and that kind of classic warm, relaxed Australian style of hospitality that we're known for. For those new to Coral, it's worth stating right away that if you're looking for that big ship experience with multiple bars and restaurants, nightclubs and casinos, then the Coral Expeditions product is probably not what you're looking for. Instead, we offer an informal, relaxed onboard experience with no need to dress formally for dinner. There's no assigned seating and no formal onboard entertainment outside our schedule of lectures and presentations from our guest lecturer and expedition leader team, and obviously specific to the waters in which you cruise. We actively encourage an open interaction between our guests and crew, and our open bridge policy allows regular interactions with the captain. And there's plenty of both in and outdoor areas to relax and enjoy the stunning scenery drift by, usually, I must say, with a cheeky G&T or glass of wine in hand. The onboard guest experience is at its core built around two main areas: the delicious culinary and wine experience and the schedule of guest lectures and presentations from our onboard experts. The aim being that you can fully immerse yourselves in the flora, fauna, history, geology and cultures of the places we visit, whilst also enjoying some of the best food and wine that Australia has to offer. The whole ethos of the company is to focus on the stunning destinations we visit rather than the ship itself, and that's a very different prospect from some of the big ship cruise lines out there. We offer a minimum of 2 shore excursions daily, and we utilize our trademark and unique explorer tenders to ensure your time is maximized ashore with literally no waiting or queuing. Our shore excursions are also tailored to all, no matter the levels of fitness. And so we offer our guests anything from a strenuous walk or hike to a site of interest or viewpoint, through to a gentler beachcomb or exploration of the area. In suitable locations, we also offer the choice of staying aboard our explorer tenders to cruise through the bays, creeks, rivers and coastlines for those of you just not inclined to head ashore on that particular day. The point being that we offer a range of excursion opportunities to fit all fitness requirements and hopefully specific areas of interest. And again, all shore excursions are accompanied by our expert expedition team. We do not outsource to third parties, meaning we can guarantee the quality of both the ashore and onboard expedition experience. So Coral was one of the first cruise operators to employ interpretive guides on our cruises. And each trip, as I've mentioned, includes a mix of our full-time guest lecturers like Ian Morris today, who join the expedition team, and special guest lecturers who are chosen for their specific, local and regional knowledge and expertise. And then we have our expedition team. So each cruise, both domestic and international, will be led by a dedicated expedition leader who will work closely with the captain to determine our daily program, ensuring that the best use is made of prevailing weather and tidal conditions. Your expedition leader will join all shore excursions and activities. They'll provide daily recaps and briefings, and they're always on hand to answer any questions that you might have. They use our ship's shallow draft, quick disembarkation capabilities, our special tender equipment, such as our Explorer vessels, which I'm going to come on to shortly, and Zodiacs, and our open deck spaces on board to take you up, up close and personal to the really remote places that we visit. So moving on to our Explorers, if you take anything away from today's presentation, it's probably the next couple of slides are really unique Explorer tenders. For any of you who have cruised with Coral Expeditions previously, be that in the Kimberley or beyond, you're going to be more than aware of the benefits that our Explorer tenders provide. They've been purpose designed and built by Coral Expeditions to provide the perfect conduit between our ships and the remote regions we visit, be that here in Cape York, Arnhem Land, the Kimberley, and all of our domestic and international itineraries. And it's something that no other cruise line, domestic or international, can offer. Our Explorers are really easy to board directly from the deck with no steps or ladders to contend with. So as you can see on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, there is the boarding procedure. So it's off one of our main decks, basically. No steps or ladders. You just walk on, sit down in one of the comfy seats, and then the middle image in the middle of the screen there is the hydraulic platform. And that basically gently lowers you into the water, and then away you go. And then exactly the same, just in reverse, when you come back. So they provide comfortable padded seating. They've got a full audio system to assist our guides in sharing their expert commentary. Crucially, a canopy overhead protects you from the sun. Really important when we sail in the predominantly tropical and subtropical waters, which is the Coral Expeditions sweet spot. And there's a toilet on board for remote convenience. And this might not sound like a big deal, but it's crucial to avoid having to constantly head back and forth between our daily excursions and the mothership, and again potentially avoid the need to have a quick dip in the ocean or find the closest bush, and particularly inadvisable in areas like Cape York and Arnhem Land itineraries that have the ever-present threat of saltwater crocodiles. In short, they're crucial in allowing us to deliver a true expedition product. They allow easy access not only to beach and harbour landings, but provide the perfect option for exploring the bays, rivers and coastlines, as well as doubling up, where applicable, as an excellent scuba and snorkel platform. Particularly relevant for the Cairns to Horn Island itineraries we're going to be covering shortly, where we visit many kind of iconic locations on the northern Great Barrier Reef, like Osprey Reef, Lizard Island, Cooktown, where there's going to be plenty of opportunities to get both in and under the water, depending if you're snorkelers or certified scuba divers. They allow us to on and off board using that hydraulic system I discussed just now, on and off board our entire ship's complement in under 15 minutes, which again means more time spent enjoying the areas that you've actually paid a considerable amount of money to experience. They're equipped with 2 powerful engines. They can reach up to 20 knots in speed, and they allow us to cover large distances in far more comfort than the more traditional Zodiac inflatables or kind of glorified tinnies utilized by other cruise lines. That being said, on all of our itineraries, both domestic and international, we complement our Explorer tenders with these more traditional Zodiac inflatables and use them in conjunction with each other, which means you can, pick and choose how adventurous you want to be on a day-by-day basis. I don't know if any of you out there have spent much time on Zodiac inflatables. They are, great fun for that first 10-20 minutes, maybe possibly up to an hour, but you've got no back support, you've got no protection from the elements, particularly the baking tropical sun, and so we found that using our Explorer tenders in conjunction with the Zodiacs provides you guys as our guests that perfect choice to decide how adventurous or not you want to be on a day-by-day basis. So on to the fleet. Coral Expeditions has 3 purpose-built expedition ships in the Coral fleet. We're going to be utilizing for the 3 itineraries we're covering today, predominantly Coral Discoverer. She is our smallest vessel, so with a maximum guest capacity of 72 on board, spread across 36 staterooms. But we also, for one of the itineraries, and I'll highlight it later, are going to be jumping aboard Coral Adventurer. So she's one of our newer vessels, launched in late 2019. She carries a maximum of 120 passengers on board, again across 60 staterooms. But as you can see from the images, there's plenty of cabins with private balconies as required. All of our cabins are outward facing. All of our cabins are en suite, so there's no internal cabins across the Coral Expeditions fleet at all. Many come with private balconies, as I say. So our lead-in cabin categories on both Coral Adventurer and Coral Discoverer, at the bare minimum, have some porthole windows. But like I say, depending on your own personal requirements, there are plenty of cabins with private balconies and picture windows as well. So Coral Discoverer and Coral Adventurer are going to be the 2 ships that we're going to be utilizing for the Cape York Arnhem Land cruise series over the next couple of years. Please jump onto our genuinely excellent website where we give you full deck layouts, loads of images, videos. Please peruse to your heart's content and reach out to our service team based out at our Cairns head office, and they'll be more than happy to assist where required. So moving on to our guest speaker today, Ian Morris, who I hope has managed to join us today. I know just prior to going live, we were having a few tech issues. He was calling in from Darwin, where he is based today. So Ian is, what can I say? He's been with Coral since 1987. He's a zoologist, educator, conservationist, and author. He's worked, as mentioned, with Coral since 1987, following a decade in East Arnhem Land, where he was engaged as a ranger training officer, with the beginning of the federal government's first Indigenous joint land management project, Kakadu National Park. Today, Ian continues his work promoting the magic of the bush as a NT-based environmental consultant, working with schools, universities, and nature documentary makers like the BBC Natural History Unit and National Geographic Society. And he continues his conservation work for federal and state governments as a consultant for many national parks across Australia. Very usefully for the Cape York and Arnhem Land itineraries. He speaks multiple Indigenous languages. He's got an adopted Indigenous son who also works for Coral Expeditions, Goima Gundara. If any of you have cruised with us in the Kimberley previously, you might well have sailed with Ian Morris, or like I say, his son Goima. And you'll know how, the font of wisdom, particularly for the top end of Australia, that both Ian and his son Goima represents. So hopefully, without further ado, we're just going to move on to our first itinerary today. Ian, have you managed to join us?
Yes, well, I can see you. Can you see me?
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm so glad we got the tech issues sorted, because my knowledge is relatively limited on the specifics of some of these trips. So excellent news that you've been managed to join us. But look, without further ado, we've got 3 itineraries that we're going to be covering today. Cape York and Arnhem Land, 11 nights, Cairns to Darwin, departing in April next year aboard Coral Discoverer, our smallest vessel that I just mentioned. And we'll move rapidly on to our first slide. Over to you, Ian.
Right. Well, one of the, as this slide indicates, one of the best aspects of this run is meeting the various Indigenous groups along our coastline, from Cape York right through to the Tiwi Islands, so we get to virtually to Darwin. And this trip does highlight the fact that all these different cultural groups vary enormously in language, in culture, in their arts and crafts. So it's always quite an eye-opener for people to travel with us and go from one group to the next, and just learn so much cultural material. Right, our next image here, another aspect, other than the oldest human occupation of the land, is the more recent European occupation of the land. What you're looking at there are the old chimneys left in the married soldiers' quarters in what we call Victoria Settlement on the Coburg Peninsula in the Northern Territory in Arnhem Land. And we're able to go into this very, very old third attempt at European settlement in the Northern Territory, long before Darwin. There were actually 4 attempts, and they all basically failed because the British did not understand the natural environment or the people much. But we do get to learn a lot about the 10 or so years that they lived here in a settlement and interacted with Aboriginal people and so forth. So we do both aspects of human history, both Indigenous and the more modern ones. Now we do, as I said, we do interact with all the different cultural groups, and they know us quite well. And I always look forward to each time I visit each place. And the little kids that we met when we first launched the Discoverer and did our first maiden voyage way back in 2005 are now adults in those same communities and have enjoyed us each season. And so, yeah, you're just looking at some of the young kids who love to come down and meet us as we come ashore in the Explorer craft. So this is Danny Gordon, one of our traditional owners from the Cape York area. And as I said, as we move geographically, we move socially and traditionally as well. So Danny's able to give us a clear picture of the traditional inhabitants of Cape York Peninsula on the eastern side. And he's pointing out there some of the unique art styles. In amongst the more recent rock art that we visit, we see what we think are, or what Danny thinks, are vessels from people like Matthew Flinders, John Lord Stokes, Philip Parker King, and some of our early navigators who also interacted with these same people and now have their vessels depicted in this rock art. It's just marvellous. Now, another totally different cultural aspect of this cruise expedition is once we've been up the eastern coast of Cape York and had a good look at the Barrier Reef, we move into the Torres Strait Islands. And blow me down, it's just the same. As you go from island to island, their traditions vary. There are variations in language. And so whenever we can meet up with these people and get ashore, they are more than happy to teach us. They're very proud of who they are and why they're different from the island over there and another island over there and so forth. So they're very proud of their cultural traditions and uniqueness. So here's an image on the very northernmost point of Australia, the continent of Australia. There are some of our guests walking down along the little track that takes us to that very point. It's often on the bucket list of a lot of those people. They really want to visit the most northern point of the Australian continent. And it's a rugged little rocky peninsula. It's not easy, but everybody's always keen to get there. clamber over the rocks and so forth. Not very many Australians get to visit that point, so it's fantastic when we get to celebrate a sunset or a sunrise with the champagne which the crew give us on the very, very northern point of our continent, the most northern Aussies. Okay, and here's another one that we get to do. We're able to look at a lot of the places where Captain James Cook went ashore and made notes in his diary. And in this particular instance, we're on the top of the highest point of Lizard Island, which has now got the name Cook's Look. And Cook's Look is a very steep climb. Only our fittest guests can get up there, and you can see way down there is the Lizard Island airstrip. And further in the distance is the research station where David Attenborough and the BBC film crews go to make their documentaries on the Great Barrier Reef. So climbing Cook's Look is another top feature of the expedition up the east coast of Cape York Peninsula.
Thank you very much for that, Ian. And look, we're going to move on rapidly because I promise not to take up more than kind of 45 minutes of your time today, ladies and gents. So it's a Cape York and Arnhem Land, but it's more art themed. So again, it's 11 nights, Darwin to Cairns. Departs October later this year and also in 2025. And it's on board Coral Discoverer. And this is the one where we also have a bit of time spent on Coral Adventurer as well with the October 2025 departure. You'll notice straight away that the itinerary is practically identical to our standalone Cape York and Arnhem Land. The main differences are that it has a particular kind of art theme. We have some, local Indigenous artists on board who run, workshops, and in places like Thursday Island, it's a particular kind of art centre, which again I'm sure Ian will clarify. But all of these stops, are going to appear in the preceding Cape York and Arnhem Land itinerary as well. So again, over to you.
Right. Well, again, with the different cultures around the coastline there, so the art styles and all the various traditions vary enormously from place to place. And essentially that's because the people didn't interact a lot in traditional times. So the Torres Strait Islanders hardly ever got over to mainland Australia and so forth. So these unique art styles and interesting craftwork all developed. And so we're able to get into these places with our onboard traditional artist. Quite often it's a Torres Strait Island person. And they're able to personalise the whole thing and teach us these different styles, why they vary, what their meanings are, and then we get a chance to have a go at it ourselves. So in between the various stops we have, our onboard traditional artist is teaching us those styles and what they mean. So it's very interesting for the guests, particularly if they've got an artistic bend.
We've already had a question come through, Ian. Is there the ability to, purchase art, direct from the artist on this particular itinerary?
Most certainly, wherever we can. There's some classic places, places like Yirrkala in Arnhem Land. They have a world-class art centre, and you can buy directly from the artist. And if it's something you like, generally you can learn firsthand what it's all about and get your photo taken with the artist. And it's good to know that the purchase that you're making goes to the local economy, not off to some big international organisation. So that's one of the big benefits of doing these trips. And we do get to places like Maningrida, the island of Moa in the Torres Strait is another great place we go to. So yes, there's quite a number, depending on all the variables in these trips, on which places we can get into. But we always visit art centres and have the opportunity to purchase things.
Thank you.
So here are some examples from the Arnhem region. People there are particularly good. The ladies are the specialists, and they take you right through the process. So you see on the left-hand side, there's some green pandanus leaves with little spikes along the side. The ladies show us how they strip those spikes off and then peel the leaves apart, dry them out. Then they dye them with natural dyes from the bush around us, and make these 4 or 5 colours, and then weave them into beautiful mats and baskets and ceremonial instruments and so on. And we do get an opportunity to not only sit and learn this sort of stuff, but to purchase the things afterwards. Now, my bend is wildlife. I just love wildlife. And on these trips, we do get a chance to get on shore and do some hiking and walking around the place. And here's an interesting little lizard in the dragon family that's only just been given its scientific name. And so we're seeing wildlife that most Australians never see, and the wildlife's not used to seeing modern humans either. So whenever we go ashore, I'm looking for the unique things. Example is when we go to Victoria Settlement. They're way back in the 1838 to 49 era. We had naturalists there, like Ludwig Leichhardt and others, who were gathering for the first time in scientific knowledge a lot of these specimens, and some of them are in the museum in London, and other important places from these destinations that we're going to. So we get to learn the history of the things that we're looking at, the little lizards that run up the trees, and the fish and the birds. It's fantastic. So in terms of wildlife, these expeditions that we run along the north coast are second to none. Again, we're looking here at Tiwi Island art. The Tiwi Islands are a unique Aboriginal group, very proud of their individuality. They always tell us how different they are from the mainlanders, and here's why. And this lady here is explaining some of the special symbolism that's in the artwork that she does, and she's very proud of it. And to us, it just looks like a lovely, colourful design. To these people, it's like an encyclopedia. It's full of information. And a lot of this information is represented in beautiful colours, natural colours from ochres and things like that. And again, here we are at Maningrida. It's one of my aunties, and she's doing the same thing. She's teaching people how they go from raw materials, which they gather before our vessels get into these communities, and have them ready. And then they explain the whole process right through to the finished product, which you can see all around her there. And it's a fascinating story. You can't sort of learn these things in normal museums or anywhere else, but here they're kind of living museums. And particularly the older men and women are there to walk us through these processes. And then we, as I said, we get access to purchase them if we need them. So here we are looking at that very tip of the Australian continent. Bit of a struggle. Fortunately, we have these explorer vessels, as Will was explaining before, and these vessels can get us pretty close to this very rocky tip. Whereas if you were coming up by vehicle, you'd have a long overland struggle. At least we get to within a few hundred metres of that famous point in our geography. Again, Torres Strait Islanders, so different from mainlanders. And they're, again, performing something they're very proud of. And I guess the thing I've always liked with coral expeditions is that our presence in these places is a vote of confidence in them and who they are. And they're able to be very proud of the fact that they've got a history, a specialised human history behind them. And so they love performing for us. So you get some lovely images and songs and stories, music and craft work when you're involved in these wonderful little events. Yes, again, the marine animals of Cape York and Arnhem Land. You're looking at a juvenile green turtle here. These are the sort of photos you get to take when you're snorkeling and swimming around places like Lizard Island. And of course, when we go to these places on a reasonably regular basis, the animals get to trust us, and you can get right up close and take photos like that just with your little cheap underwater camera like I've got. Takes very, very good photos of all sorts of marine animals, including these lovely green turtles.
And again, just to put my 2 cents worth in, the next itinerary that we're going to be covering, the Cairns to Horn Island, we go into a little bit more detail as well on some of the highlights of the northern Great Barrier Reef. And there we go. So moving on, as I'm very conscious of the time, onto our third and final itinerary that we're going to be covering today, the Torres Strait and Cape York. So it's 10 nights between Cairns and Horn Island and vice versa. So we have 2 departures in October this year, and then 2 departures next year, one in October, one in November. And again, aboard Coral Discoverer, our smallest vessel with a maximum capacity of 72 guests on board. But over to you.
Well, once again, this man here that's dancing for us and the guys behind him, they're wearing the symbol of the Torres Strait people. It's a wonderful headdress. You'll see it if you do the trip with us on a number of occasions, and they very proudly display it when they dance their traditional dances. And that makes them quite unique from mainland Aboriginal people, who are quite different in the way they celebrate their human history.
And again, Cape York for a sunset champagne toast. We probably don't need to go over it for the third time. But what is good to note is what Ian just mentioned, is that again, utilising our unique explorer tenders, we can get you right in close to the Cape, so you don't have that big walk to get the obligatory photo at the viewpoint. But having a couple of glasses of champagne, watching the sunset is a beautiful experience.
For anybody who doesn't want to climb the rugged rocks to get to the tip, it's usually only a short distance, but they can remain in the Explorer, and then the Explorer drivers will get them right in close so they can see the little crabs on the rocks looking at them, and so on. So we're very lucky to have those Explorers.
And look, before I hand over to Ian, this is the one slide that I wanted to, again, chuck my 2 cents worth in, because I'm a keen scuba diver. For any of you guys out there that either are qualified scuba divers or even snorkelers like Ian, I believe, Osprey Reef is magnificent. This photo doesn't do it justice at all. I've been lucky enough to dive in the Red Sea and the Maldives and obviously in wider around the world. And Osprey Reef, for me, has been the premier diving experience of my life. I know a couple of you have pre-submitted prior to this presentation some questions on scuba diving, which I'll come on to shortly. But it's an absolutely epic underworld environment there, whether or not you're scuba diving or snorkeling. But over to you for a bit of commentary from yourself, Ian.
Yeah, well, I'm essentially a terrestrial person, but I love doing these runs. And as you say, Osprey Reef, being off the edge of the Great Barrier Reef, it's sort of like an underwater pyramid in a way. The water is so clear because you're well out from the mainland and well out from the rivers that discharge any silt and so forth. So the visibility is fantastic. And as I said, the wildlife there, the big cods and the coral trout and things like that, they swim right up to you because they've never been hassled, and they're quite used to people like us. So it is an extra special experience in those kind of places.
Yeah, and almost certainly, when we turn up there, we're going to be the only people on that particular reef. We don't get any of the day trippers from Cairns or Port Douglas or Cooktown heading out to this particular reef. So it's a real highlight. And like I say, if any of you enjoy that kind of marine environment, you're going to have a fantastic day when we head to Osprey Reef. Indeed.
And we also have professional divers who give us all the best advice too, so doubly good. Here we are up on another wonderful summit on Lizard Island, and as we know from our history books, Captain Cook climbed this twice, this great big 340-metre high hill, to try and find his way out of the Barrier Reef. He'd already crashed into a reef. He'd been into the Endeavour River in Cooktown, and we go there and have a look at that. And then he had to kind of figure out, how am I going to get out of this really complex reef system? And he managed to do it by climbing to where we're standing now with his long telescope thing and working out how he could get the old Endeavour out there beyond the reef. Okay, here we go again with Danny Gordon. And Danny's lovely. He enjoys these trips as much as the guests do, I think. And he's done hundreds of them like me. But He just loves promoting the symbolism in the art. People often look at Aboriginal people and say, well, they've got no form of writing, so they couldn't write down their history or anything like that. They sure did, but they didn't need writing. And Danny explains how that works. And that's what he's in the process of doing there. And it goes right up to, as I said, to people like Matthew Flinders turned up on his shoreline, and they met them and they exchanged a lot of information. So it's all recorded there in their art.
Just a quick segue, as I know we had a question came in on that. Are the Indigenous groups in Australia, are they still creating rock art?
Yes, it just depends. A lot of them no longer are allowed to live in the places where they used to live. They have to live in communities. They have to put their kids in school, or they get no social welfare. They've got a lot of ropes over them now that often prevent them from living on site where they used to be. And Danny's people are now over on mainland Cape York. So in some instances, yes, they're living on site and they're refreshing their art. We use the word refreshing. Others are not able to get there very often. Now, here's a nice one. This is Mrs. Brown Booby with her little son, Eric. No, his name's not Eric. I'm not sure what his name is, but these brown boobies breed on the offshore sand cays. Very difficult to get to normally, but again, our explorers can put us right up on the sand cays. We have permission from the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority to go and visit these breeding sites. And as I said, the birds, like everything else, have become used to it. So we can walk right up to them and they just continue on with their normal lives. They don't get a shock and fly away. So we can actually observe the animal.
I've lost you, Ian, I think. Are you there? Okay, well, whilst Ian's screen, as you can see, is probably frozen a little bit. The old Wi-Fi technology up in Darwin, not up to scratch, clearly. So I'll just continue until hopefully Ian can kind of rejoin us. Cooktown, obviously, Ian has touched on already, named after obviously the famous Captain Cook that brought the Endeavour in there to try and fix the ship after he had run aground on one of the nearby reefs. So we have a little bit of time to walk around. We can obviously go up to the viewpoint where Captain Cook, explored the reef to get himself out. We go to the Maritime History Museum in Cooktown, which I believe I haven't been there personally, but I believe some of the guest feedback we get from it, it's an incredibly good kind of immersive experience that really kind of explains both the kind of Captain Cook kind of history, but also the wider maritime history of the region. So it's a really popular day there. Oops, sorry. And that luckily brings us towards the end of our presentation today. So look, you'll be more than aware that this is very much a kind of a brief overview of these three Cape York, Arnhem Land, and the top end of the Barrier Reef kind of expedition itineraries. Please jump onto our genuinely excellent website where we give you full detailed day-by-day itineraries. There's loads of images, there's maps, there's loads of videos there as well. You can obviously reach out to our service team based up at our Cairns head office, either on the Explore app, Coral Expeditions email there, or the 1-800 number, and they'll more than happily kind of talk you through any kind of particular questions that you might have. Alternatively, look, we've been working with the travel industry for the last 40 years since we've been in business. So please, reach out to your travel agent, get them to touch base with us as required. So just to finish the presentation, we've had a couple of questions, some of them pre-submitted, some have popped through in the chat function whilst we've been talking today. So I've covered a couple of them, like places to buy art. So scuba, a couple of you have asked to kind of expand on scuba diving. So Scuba, we only offer where applicable. So the first two itineraries, your Cape York and your Arnhem Land, and your and the art-themed Cape York Arnhem Land itineraries, we can only do the scuba diving and snorkeling, for that matter, once we round the tip of Cape York and obviously head down to the northern Great Barrier Reef. And that's for the obvious, stingers and saltwater crocodile issues that we have up on the top ends there. However, that being said, if for any of those three itineraries, once you have rounded the tip of Cape York, we have a lot of opportunities to get both, in and under the water. It doesn't matter if you're just a snorkeler. We provide you with your snorkel gear and the beach towel, for that matter. They're yours for the duration of the trip. We do ask that you return them to us at the end of the trip, and we cater for all. So, utilizing the he's just coming back in, utilizing the Explorer tenders, which in my kind of preamble to this presentation, they double up as the perfect kind of scuba and snorkel platform. So you don't have to be, ultra confident in the water. We provide life jackets, we can provide noodles. We're always accompanied by our expedition team in the water and obviously on Zodiacs and our Explorer tenders as well. And we try and provide a range of sites. So some might be just, off a beach or a sand cay. It's not going to be necessarily out in the open water. For those scuba divers amongst you, all three of our ships in the Coral Expedition fleet have full scuba facilities with dive masters on board as well. It's one of the few things on any of our Coral Expedition itineraries that is not included in your existing fare. So if you are wanting to scuba, and I highly recommend any of these trips, Osprey Reef, Lizard Island, places like that, I would, at the time of booking, or if you've already booked for some of these upcoming trips, please let us know if you haven't already at our service and reservation team, and they'll just ensure that we've got the necessary equipment and gear on board, basically. But yeah, from Cape York all the way down to Cairns, it's it's an underwater marine paradise. We all know about the Great Barrier Reef, places like Stanley Island, Lizard Island, snorkeling, diving opportunities galore. So please reach out and we can ensure that we get you booked in for the scuba. If you're just a snorkel, you don't have to worry at all, or pre-book anything. That obviously comes included in the prepaid cost, and all your gear is already on board, and we will give it to you upon your arrival. Segueing into that, a couple of you have reached out to clarify the all-inclusive nature of the trip. So just harking back to scuba diving not being included, 99% of what we offer on any of our Coral Expeditions trips, be it in the Kimberley, be it here in Cape York, Arnhem Land, be it on our international itineraries, is 100% all included. There are some minor exceptions to that, scuba diving being one of them. Laundry, we offer a laundry service on all of our ships. That comes at a small additional charge. We used to charge for Wi-Fi access on board our ships. And probably up to about a year or so ago, our Wi-Fi, particularly in the more remote regions which is our sweet spot, was not necessarily reliable. But we've spent a small fortune over the last 12 months. Not that Elon Musk needs the additional money, but installing Starlink Wi-Fi capability across the fleet. And the Wi-Fi now, no matter how remote you are, is better than our Cairns head office Wi-Fi speeds, basically. Our standard Wi-Fi package comes included in your existing fare, and we found with guest feedback over the last 12 months or so that the standard inclusion Wi-Fi is more than enough for the vast majority of our guest needs. So for posting videos and images to social media, keeping in contact with friends and family is going to be more than enough. If you're one of those very unlucky people that have to have a business meeting, or God forbid, you've got the time to download Netflix movies, you might want to upgrade to our premium Wi-Fi, which does come at an additional cost. All your excursions come included, all your meals, obviously, whilst you're on board. Alcoholic drinks during lunch and dinner service are included. But if you enjoy, a cheeky G&T or beautiful Tasmanian single malt after dinner, that would come at an additional cost. But the vast majority of each of our cruises is that all-inclusive experience. I'm very conscious of time. I know I've hit the 45-minute window now. So one final question to answer, and I know a couple of you have answered it. How physical are these particular trips, i.e., paraphrasing, but how fit or physically able do I need to be to get the most of it. I touched on it briefly in my kind of introduction preamble, but we understand our demographic. Our sweet spot is that kind of 50 plus age range demographic. We have a median age across all of our cruises in the early 60s, so we're aware and cater accordingly, basically. So we'll always offer a variety of shore excursion options. Some, or one might be, a bit of a physical challenge, like Ian touched on, to go up to Cook's Look on Lizard Island. But we'll always offer, a more gentle beach walk or beach comb or exploration of the area. And where applicable, we'll also have those unique explorer tenders to allow us, if you don't want to head ashore on any particular day for whatever reason, we can just cruise along the coastlines and creeks and rivers, so you don't miss out on any of those kind of epic, destinational experience. We do encourage people, if you feel confident or a bit unconfident, bring some walking poles with you. But like I say, in short, we'll always provide, an option that will hopefully fit everybody's kind of physical requirements. I'm going to finish there, I think, before I take up too much of you guys' valuable time. I really appreciate you joining us today. As mentioned, it's a bit of a brief overview, kind of snapshot of what we offer across Australia's top end between kind of Cairns and Darwin. Please reach out to our genuinely excellent service and res team. Jump onto the website where we give you, a massive range of additional information. For any of you guys that are booked on our 2024 departures, you're going to have an absolutely fantastic time. And for any of you just kind of considering your options, please feel free or get your travel agent to reach out to us, and hopefully we get to see you on board soon. Ian, I don't know if you're back in the presentation, but a massive thank you to you.
Hopefully I am.
You are welcome back. You froze on me for a few moments, but look, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, Ian, to provide a bit of local knowledge and insight. If any of you guys listening today are lucky enough to cruise, either on some of these Cape York, Arnhem Land itineraries or in the Kimberley, and you get Ian Morris as one of our lecturers on board, you're going to be kind of blown away by his passion and knowledge of the region. So thank you, Ian. Really appreciate you joining us today. And thank you to everybody that joined us today. If you've had to leave, prior to the end of this presentation, as I mentioned, it's recorded. We'll send it to all. Please feel free to distribute far and wide. And hopefully we look forward to seeing you on board soon. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a fantastic long Easter weekend. And we look forward to seeing you on board soon. Thank you very much.